Hey Ratbags, today I'm going to talk about everything you need to know about SMALLAND. What it is, what it's going to be, and what I really think about it so far, judged by all the social media posts, the videos, interview vlogs, and all the gameplay we've seen. I've covered SMALLAND ever since its inception way back in 2017, and I followed it as it changed developer hands, got reborn as a proper game and not just a tech demo and a dream, and now it's finally going to be available here. Coming to Steam Early Access and consoles in the future. So let's cover everything you need to know about SMALLAND Survive the Wilds. So the trader pitch, you are a SMALLANDer. You are basically coming out of the ground after a period of time to try and reclaim the land that was once yours. Humans have come and gone due to some apocalyptic event, and now it's your turn to go and explore and see if you can make a new home for you and your people above the ground. It's going to be a 1 to 10 player co-op game. Certainly that's what it will launch with, at least. You'll be able to join your friends in their worlds, but there won't be any official servers as of yet, although they have stated that they will maybe look into adding them in the future. This is a PvE focused crafting survival game. There is friendly fire, so you can have arena battles with your friends if you want to build them, or just have some fun trolling your besties, but otherwise it will be a game that you can control if people can damage you or not. A big focus of the game is going to be on taming and building. Let's take a look at that building. There's going to be multiple different tile sets that you'll need to protect yourself against the seasons. The seasons can do damage to your bases, and so you're going to have to make sure that you have got everything protected. Bugs can also do damage to you and your bases, so you need to make sure they're protected from them as well. It's got an interesting mechanic, SMALLAND, in that you can take over a tree. This tree becomes an anchor point that you can then take over to your friends' worlds. So anything you've built on side or on top of one of these trees in a specific spot, you can then take your base and join your friends and have your base alongside theirs in separate trees. It's similar to the Fallout 76 mechanic, where you could take your base or your camp and place it in different spots or different servers. This is a great feature. It will help definitely in joining other people's worlds, where you can join together, take part in events, maybe go around gathering resources and share the stuff accordingly, knowing that both of you will get some reward. You'll both be able to go ahead and upgrade your base or put some of the resources in your own chests, and then when you're ready, you can go back to your own world if you want. At launch, the game's going to have a peaceful mode as well as a normal mode, and you will be able to turn on or off whether or not players can join. You'll also be able to control, again, as I said, if players can actually harm you by turning PvP on or off. This is a really unique selling point. I can't think of too many games where you'd be able to take your base over to another world of your friends. I'm hoping the same can be done on your own worlds, that you'll be able to take a character and a base you've built and then go and put it down in a brand new world if you really wanted to. But it does look like you'll be able to change and move your base pretty freely and easily. You can build elsewhere, you don't have to be restricted to just building in trees, but you may not have that ability to go ahead and transfer your base. From what we've seen in some of the previews, it does look like buildings more along the lines of Conan Exiles, where you'll craft and then immediately place the items. There's no blueprint system like Grounded, and you won't be carrying 20 foundations around with you. You have to have the ingredients on you to go ahead and then build in that one spot. Of course, much might have changed. Obviously, we've seen certain clips and gameplay moments. One of the biggest ones was a good over a year ago now, a big gameplay reveal showcasing a whole bunch. Since then, it's been obvious that a lot of the stuff in this video you're seeing now has changed, but I still think it presents a good idea of what to expect in terms of the feel. It does look like you'll be able to build quite large structures or small tiny encampments all over the map if you really want, just making sure you've always got at least one tree base so you can take it with you to other places. So that's base building. What about the other main feature? It's the creatures. This is very similar to Ark by the looks of things in terms of how many creatures you'll be able to ride. Certainly not all of them, but there is a big selection and there's a huge amount of creatures to face in the open world. Our small size isn't going to limit us against taking on much bigger creatures like a giant toad. A quick run of the creatures you'll come to face when it launches, and they're going to be adding lots more. We've got things like ladybirds, there's going to be grasshoppers, different amounts of spiders, all types. We've got fireflies, butterflies, moths, lots of beetles, a lizard, dragonflies and damn self-flies, as well as a whole bunch of different ants. Merge games are promising over a dozen different species of creatures in the game. Out of them, I've counted at least 4, possibly 5 different mounts and all the different trailers so far. We'll need them because the map is absolutely massive by the looks of things, so getting across to places and also needing a lot more verticality. There are going to be other ways we'll be able to travel, including armour and wings that you can use as glider suits, not to mention a grappling hook too, but it does look like mounts is going to be a pretty important part of it. One other aspect is the different types of creatures. It does look like it's going to be a selection of either bosses or mini bosses or elite style creatures, as shown off by this luba that I'm guessing is a grasshopper variant. We know that some of the mounts and creatures we'll have as our companions or pets will help us out in defending against creatures, but maybe not always. Way back when I interviewed some of the devs, they'd said that he wanted the relationships between the creatures to grow and that they would become less scared and maybe would fight more for you as you got to know them or you used them more. Doesn't list exactly how them systems will work or if they're going to be there for early access, but it still sounds promising. There's going to be lots of info that you'll be able to gain about the creatures. It does look like it's going to be some sort of textbook or something in game you'll be able to check, and the amount of creatures we've seen in the previews really show a huge selection. Whether or not they're going to be there early access or added, I can't wait to jump on and test so many of them. Big part of the marketing has been the owl, and there is definitely references to birds in the trailers, in the original ones at least anyway, so it'll be interesting to see if they get utilised in some way in the future too. In terms of taming, I don't believe it's going to take too long to actually get one. It's not going to be like Ark where you have to build huge pens and maybe wait all day long for them to tame. From a small gameplay trailer they did show, it did look like you'd be able to get a grasshopper fairly easily by feeding it a correct type of food. Another big planned feature is going to be the factions. Now this won't be here at early access, the devs have stated recently that it's going to be added afterwards, but effectively you'll be doing stuff and it could affect how other creatures are in the world, or certainly there will be different ways that you'll be able to contribute with the different insect factions. It's all a little bit vague, but I'm guessing it'll be along lines of do a certain quest, maybe kill certain creatures on behalf of another creature and you'll be rewarded. But you'll have to think carefully about the balance, so you're not decimating one race or another, or closing off the ability to get quests from another faction. But that is going to be something that won't be there at launch, like I said, afterwards. When it comes to combat, there is a dodge mechanic. There is a also parry system by the looks of things, or at least a defense, and a light and heavy attack to do damage with all sorts of different weapons. This is SMALLAND's other big selling point, armors and weapons. The armors are going to be a big focus. Obviously, when you're going into combat against so many different types of bugs, there's bound to be strengths and weaknesses and reasons why you'd want some of these. They do look fantastic. I love the design of them, and there just seems to be so many that we'll be able to unlock. For what we can tell, we'll be talking to NPCs, which we'll cover in a second, and these will give us the recipes for the bulk of these different types of armors. Utilising the bug parts, of course, you can definitely get a distinctive look for a lot of them. I'm really hoping we get more utility out of the different armor sets as well. We can clearly see we've got some that have wings, or glider wings at least, and I'm hoping the others will also give us a lot of benefits. Again, it does look like we're going to need some of these armor sets for the different seasons, as some will provide, I'm guessing, more warmth against the cold, or help us maybe if it's too hot. We don't know as much about weapons, although it does look like there's a good selection, and I'm guessing again that some weapons are going to be much better to deal with against certain creatures than others. But the armour and weapons is going to be vital for protecting ourselves, but what are we going to do about them seasons? It does look like that in winter, stuff may be harder to find, like berries or foods, and then in summer we may find ourselves draining a little bit more of certain resources. So preparing for each season could be really important in the game if certain things are scarce. And they've mentioned as well and shown that certain places will become iced over, and that will give us access to places that we haven't seen before. Again, it depends on how much of this is really in there at the early access launch, or whether or not some of this will be added afterwards. The latest gameplay shown was a good first 5 minutes chunk, and it showed some of the survival mechanics as well as the NPCs we'll be meeting. In terms of survival, it's pretty simplistic. You just have to worry about food. You're not going to have to worry about drinking. You've got your health bar, of course, as well, and you've got a comfort bar. So it is going to be a more traditional survival game, not a survival light. By the looks of things, if it gets too low, then it may hamper our speed or might even cause us to die if we run out of food. And I'm guessing the different seasons will affect the comfort bar, so that in winter, maybe that will go down quicker, and in summer, it may stay a little bit longer. The basics of survival are there though. You'll be collecting resources from these smaller little nodes. Not everything is going to be harvestable, as you can see. A lot of the foliage here you simply just walk through. But sprout nodes, wood nodes, and by looks of things resin are going to be some of the major components you'll need. Being able to craft basic weapons and tools is going to be something as well that you'd expect, but it does look like we're going to need a whole variety of different crafting benches to get more advanced gear. As we see from this clip, it's pretty limited how or what you can craft in the early stages. There is a chance you might be able to become a vegetarian just by eating the mushrooms in the game, but it does look like a lot of the stuff is going to revolve around picking up meat from the creatures. Whenever you kill a bug, it does look like it's going to be dropping a variety of different resources, things that wouldn't necessarily be able to eat, but hopefully be able to craft weapons out of too. And just like Valheim and Grounded, every time you come across a new resource or recipe item, it will unlock the recipes for you and tell you exactly what you'll be able to make with it. The combat, I would say, is pretty basic. It does remind me a little bit of an old school game, but it does have them added abilities to dodge, and it does have a slide mechanic as well in the game. So this does freshen it up somewhat. A lot of survival games only rely on just being able to attack with the same monotonous animation. So I wouldn't say it's maybe as robust as something like Conan Exiles, but it definitely is a lot better than Ark. Some curious quirks and things you need to know. If you really want to explore the waterways, you're going to have to wait. It does look like you're not going to be able to jump into the water, as it can kill you in the early stages. Not too sure if the devs ever actually plan to have underwater content, and I'm not that fussed about it, as most underwater content is pretty boring. A really cool feature is the sensor that we have. We can press a button and it will reveal a whole bunch of stuff, almost like a sonar. I'm hoping this gets fleshed out a little bit more. We saw it showed up the beetle's name, but obviously you can still see the beetle's name when you get close to it. But it'd be cool if this actually revealed details about how to face it or combat against it. But certainly while you explore in the dark, it's going to come in handy. The map does look to have much varied and large biomes, with little hints about the humanity that was there before. From dark mysterious swamps to maybe garages and the playgrounds of the humans, as well as obviously the glades and heavy forests that you come to expect. And these look like they change drastically depending on what season it is. Not many games really do have seasons in them, so I'm really excited about the possibility of looking around the map, seeing something fresh and new, just because of the way it's coated now in either snow, or it's looking nice in autumn, or more abundance with resources in spring. The bugs are very realistic. If they're a little bit too realistic for you, particularly spiders, then don't worry, there is going to be an arachnophobia mode added. In fact, it's going to be there for launch, and this is somewhat of a recent development, as previously they said they weren't going to be adding it anytime soon, but looks like they have put it in. So if you've ever played Grounded but always been a bit worried about facing off against spiders, well, don't worry, there are definitely ways that you can combat that with arachnophobia modes to reduce how many legs they have, shorten the legs, or make them have no legs at all. This is definitely a feature I want to see more of if we do access areas because the water has been frozen. This would really open and change the way that we play the game. In terms of resources, it does look like we will have to explore some of the human-made stuff, but also to find the NPCs, and this is probably the fourth major component of SMALLAND. Finding these guys to get the recipes for different armor sets, and hopefully getting quests in the future. They'll be scattered far and wide across the map by looks of things, with seemingly one in each of the major biomes so far. And I presume that in the future they will be a liaison maybe with the factions, unless we are directly going to start communicating to some of the bugs. At the moment the bugs don't say anything or do anything, they are just what you would expect, either dangerous towards you or kind of ignore you. But you can clearly see a bunch of different options while talking to Lysandra here, the Queen of the Swamps. I've spoke a lot about the map and some of the biomes you'd expect to face, and I guess that is the fifth major component of SMALLAND, having a really rich variety in the places that we'll explore, having to get really prepped to go into the more dangerous areas. So let me know what you think about SMALLAND. This is probably my final kind of preview before the actual full game's out. I may do some smaller info videos just before launch, but otherwise I am seeing a good addition to the survival genre so far. It looks different enough from its main competitor Grounded, but also looks similar enough to games like Ark and Conan that it can draw in a whole bunch of more players. And I think overall it's got enough in there to stand on its own two little feet. As long as early access can promise regular updates and regular communication about what to expect next, then I'm definitely looking forward to covering this long term. So do leave a comment, tell me what you think about the game, and of course as soon as I'm able to, I will post lots of gameplay, lots of guides and a review. Until next time, rat bags, laters.